Warning, this review will have spoilers. If you are even remotely interested in this series, then please purchase and read it before watching this review. A couple of years ago, when I heard the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel sequel was going to be called The Marvels, I was excited because I initially thought this meant that there would be other Marvels like characters like the Marvels, Captain Marvel's kids who had held the Captain Marvel title at some point, Marvel Boy, and the Blue Marvel. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. They went in another direction, which is fine, I guess, okay? But I gotta admit, it's pretty disappointing. So because of that, I'm going to briefly resurrect my failed Curious Case of Captain Marvel retrospective, since this will probably be my only chance to ever talk about the Blue Marvel. So let's take a look at his introduction in his 2008 limited series, Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel. The creators on the book were writer Kevin Grevioux, penciler Matt Broom, inked by Sean Parson, Alvaro Lopez, and colors by John Ronch. Issue 1 begins when we see the Avengers getting mollywopped by a villain in New York City. So basically your average day. The guy that's thrashing them is called Anti-Man. You know how we know Anti-Man is a big deal? He's slapping around the Sentry, who at this time was supposed to be the most powerful hero in the Marvel Universe. Nowadays, he might not even be in the top 5 or top 10 since everyone seems to be an Omega level hero now. Anti-Man is starting to spout some nonsense and then says that if the Blue Marvel couldn't be him, why do they think that they can? And then he just disappears. We then jump back to June 4th, 1962, where we see Anti-Man fight what appears to be a Dr. Fate cosplayer. I mean, come on, look at him. The only difference between him and Fate is 1, Dr. Fate has a gold and lighter blue color scheme, and 2, Blue Marvel looks like he had Jackson Pollock design his nameplate. What is interesting is Anti-Man is calling the Blue Marvel by his real name, Adam. After much destruction, the Blue Marvel finally puts down Anti-Man, and we find out that the Blue Marvel is black. Now we jump to 2 months later at the Pentagon, and they have a problem. A big black man is saving people, but they figured out who he is. Adam Bernard Bashir, former All-American fullback from Cornell University, has a PhD in theoretical physics and electrical engineering, and is a Korean War vet. They show some of his superhuman feats and then decide that it would be bad if the world knew that the most powerful being on Earth is a black man. The government figures that this is the best time for President Kennedy to have a chat with him. It's pretty obvious where this is headed. Despite doing his job to the best of his ability, he was still hated. Heck, in a bit of exposition with the president, we see how the country has turned on Adam since they found out that he's black. There seems to be a fear that the civil rights law won't pass if people know that there's a black Superman around. Adam is a man torn between 2 worlds. The president said it best. All he's done for this country saved the world from disasters and despots, yet he can't even eat a ham sandwich in one of our cafeterias in his own hometown. President Kennedy also points out that this could have been avoided if they abolished things like coloreds only and Jim Crow, but now they're running around paranoid like frightened little children because one colored man who can stand against them if he wanted to, and they wouldn't have any way to stop him either. Kennedy meets with Adam and tells him that he has to go into hiding. Adam reluctantly accepts this. After the talk, Kennedy gives Adam the Presidential Medal of Freedom in private. Back in present day, Yellow Jacket Reed Richards and Tony Stark are discussing about Anti-Man and about how his powers don't make any sense. Reed, the Unstable Molecules, would like to have a word with you about that. Later on, Tony is at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters trying to find information on the Blue Marvel. He finds it and then he confronts Dum Dum Dugan. I found this part of their discussion interesting. Dugan states he was the world's greatest hero for about a year, give or take a couple of months. The 40s had Captain America, the 50s had Marvel Boy, the early 60s belonged to the Blue Marvel. I remember a Marvel Boy miniseries coming out around this time, so it's good that he was incorporated or retconned into the main Marvel history. That said, I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't read comics consistently since about 2017, 2018 on an ongoing basis, so there's still a chance that they changed it. An example would be Truth, Red, White, and Black. Isaiah Bradley in the comic is said that he was the first Captain America. The super soldier serum was put in black people first as guinea pigs. Since then, I've seen comics that said that he wasn't the first Captain America, that was Steve Rogers, and black people weren't experimented until after Steve got it, which I see as bullcrap. Anyway, Dum Dum and Tony continue talking, and Tony points out the hypocrisy of how it's been okay for Thor in the Sentry to wield power, but a black man? Duggan gives Tony the name of someone named Kroots. He should have all the answers to Tony's questions. We get another flashback that shows a government meeting which had Dr. Bolivar Trask of X-Men fame. They believe Adam is just a symptom of a possibly growing problem. Superhumans and mutants, something has to be done. So they begin Project Wide Awake. Project Wide Awake began as a 5-year study to see if mutants were a menace to mankind. They thought maybe Adam was a mutant at that particular time. Krutz told Tony about the last time they saw Adam. They sent him on a suicidal mission to stop a threat, hoping that in a best case scenario we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Ugh. Adam thought it was a mission of peace, but nah, that alien was a scout for an armada. Adam takes out the alien scout, but then he just disappeared. The government used the alien incident as a way to let everyone know that the Blue Marvel was dead. Or was he? After we see Krutz giving Tony a book, we next see Tony meeting a woman named Candice Brashear. They're looking for her husband. Tony reveals that they know that she's really a secret agent named Marlene Frazier, aka Agent 314. Tony gives her his card, and when they leave, she calls Adam, who's an instructor now at the University of Maryland, and warns him they're looking for you. At the start of the issue, Adam's wife reveals to him that she was assigned to keep tabs on him. Intimately, it's implied. Adam doesn't take this well. He asks a very valid question: were they ever in love? Now, of course, she denies that their love is fake, but from this point on, she's an unreliable narrator for the rest of her retelling what part she plays in the story. After he leaves her, he flies to the blue part of the moon. He has a serious talk with Uatu the Watcher. Uatu points out that while she didn't reveal everything about her, he didn't tell everything about him either, being the Blue Marvel. Granted, she already knew he was the Blue Marvel, but still. They reminisce a bit about how they first met on the moon years ago, and how after their chat from years ago, an alien armada that the scout was scouting finally arrived. Despite the way the world and government treated him, he went and took out the aliens in order to protect the Earth. Back to modern day, he realizes that he has to go back to Earth and stop Anti-Man. But this time, he's not gonna fall on his sword. Which is cool because now, whether the world is ready or not, it's getting a black Superman. And no, Rage from the early 90s Avengers run doesn't count. The issue ends with Anti-Man arriving in the Sahara and Adam meeting up with Tony on the SHIELD helicarrier. Issue 4 starts with a flashback. You know, this series should just be called Flashbacks by this point, considering the sheer number of them. In 1953, while on a naval base in North Carolina, a couple white racist soldiers are treating Adam like crap. Another white soldier friend of his jumps in and helps him out. Then we immediately jump back to the present day on the helicarrier where Frank, Reed, and Tony are discussing the Anti-Man situation. Anti-Man's real name is Connor, who was the good white soldier in the most recent flashback. It seems he's becoming an antimatter wormhole. If he isn't stopped, he'll destroy the planet. That just sounds like an average Thursday on Marvel Earth. It's here where Adam reveals his and Connor's secret origin. Adam was working on a project paid by the Army to harness antimatter. Well, there was an explosion and only Connor and Adam were left alive. But then the antimatter disintegrated Connor, but it pumped Adam full of antimatter, and thus the Blue Marvel was born. Adam then tells the guys that Connor was able to reform, but he was mentally unstable now. He had a brother in the FBI that went on an undercover mission and was killed by the Klan. So he decided to force the world to change its ways, create a utopia where there's no hate by any means necessary. Yep, that's right. Connor is Malcolm X and Adam is Martin Luther King stand-ins. The discussion gets heated with the heroes asking why he didn't do more with his powers. Why didn't he, for instance, save Martin Luther King Jr. and so on? Boy, the hypocrisy of this is ridiculous because this has been an argument people have been using against superheroes for years. I think that's the point though. Adam counters that if he stayed around, a firestorm would have began and most likely a race war. This is basically the same thing the government said in order to remove him earlier. How ironic. After Adam leaves, Hank, Reed, and Tony have a brief discussion about racism and trying to understand Adam's point of view. Reed says the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, were lauded as heroes, protectors of mankind, if you will. They give us parades in our honor, approach us with endorsements. Yet the X-Men, heroes as well, are hated and feared. Have you ever asked yourself why? There's no way to answer that honestly without making humanity look like trash. I do find it interesting that Reed admitted he never thought heavily about human and mutant affairs until his son Franklin was born. Unfortunately, that's true about most people. Other people's problems don't come up onto our radar until it actually affects us. Just goes to show you that in general, empathy is something that has to be learned and isn't something we're born with. We didn't see Adam fly to the Mariana Trench and go to his underwater hideout, which looks like a more high-tech bat cave. Even has a dinosaur for crying out loud. Wait a minute, is that the Millennium Falcon hanging up in the rafters? Star Wars and Marvel wasn't even bought by Disney at this point. What's going on here? Well, anyway, he's not alone. Namor the Submariner is there. Surprisingly, they're old friends, just like Adam is with Uatu. I like their dynamic in this back and forth. Both of them have experienced racism from their own people and they had to fight for a larger cause than themselves. Namor's final comments is something to think about though. I'm trying to get you to understand the complexities of justice. If you want things to change, you're going to have to make enemies. That's just the way it is. As soon as Adam leaves his hideout, he runs into Anti-Man on the moon. And then, say with me, a flashback happens. After the accident, he took Connor to his underwater hideout. Connor was in a coma for over a month. During that time, his body became unstable. Even though these two haven't had much on-screen time together, I like this part of the book because we learn some history about their relationship. An example would be they're godparents to each other's kids. But it looks like Adam sent Connor's family away so Connor wouldn't hurt them. That created a rift between them. Even though Connor is unhinged, he makes some good points. Adam had the power to make some positive change, but he gave up. The problem is this message has been repeated at least half a dozen times now in this comic, and there's still one issue to go. And while it's a good point, Adam made a good point earlier too, where he said you also have to give people the benefit of the doubt to do the right thing. Just because you have overwhelming power, that doesn't mean that you can just force change, good intentions or not, onto people and expect them to just take it. If you want to see some comics where this happened, try Mark Waid's Empire and Mark Greenwald's Squadron Supreme miniseries. Spoiler, it doesn't end well. The issue ends with Connor knocking out Adam and then making his way back to Earth. Surprisingly, the final issue doesn't begin with a flashback. Adam, Reed, and the Avengers are coming up with a plan to stop Anti-Man, who's on his way to New York. Reed decides it's too dangerous to follow Adam's plan, so Adam just said, screw it, I'll just do it by myself then. You know, it's been 5 issues and there still hasn't been a single superhero versus superhero fight. Well, I guess the writer realized that too, because guess what? We're now getting the Avengers versus the Blue Marvel. This series really didn't need this sort of conflict. It was already engaging. It didn't need the old trope of superheroes fighting each other. The sad thing is, for over a decade after this comic came out, this sort of became the norm. There would be numerous mini and maxi series where the whole point was heroes fighting each other. Example, Civil War, Civil War II, X-Men vs. Avengers, X-Men vs. the Inhumans, twice, and so on. Eventually they, really only the Sentry, take Adam down and then put him into stasis. Adam's wife visits him. While that's happening though, the world is about to come apart because Connor's about to go boom. Okay, this has gotten so dumb. The story is starting to remind me of Civil War II where you have smart people acting dumb. Realistically, all these guys should be working together. There isn't any reason for them to be fighting each other. Meanwhile, Adam and Candace have a heart-to-heart and they both decide that despite everything they've gone through, he should go and take care of Connor. My fridge sense is tingling. Adam finally makes his way to the Avengers who are getting pimp-slapped by Anti-Man. Adam has a plan and finally they listen to him. Unfortunately, doing this, Candace arrives on the scene to be with him and gets fried. Her last words provide more motivation for him to stop Connor. Even though it looks like Adam will kill Connor out of anger, he actually does it fairly peaceful and out of pity. And he even forgives him for everything he's done. The epilogue takes place a week later at a cemetery. Adam came to say goodbye to Candace. Tony arrives and they have a small chat. Adam says even though he was angry at her deception, he admired the guts it took for her to take the assignment to spy on him, as well as the courage to love him and have a family with him considering the era they were living in when they first met. He's truly humbled by her courage to do all of that. Tony offers a place on the Avengers Forum, but for the moment he turns it down. He needs to get used to this modern age of heroes and his place in it. Later on, Adam finds a letter Candace wrote to him and a package of something she made for him. She said how much she loved, respect, and is proud of him. Her final words in the letter is, in my opinion, the best dialogue in the entire series. I want you to understand that even though they took away your mask, your face shines bright. They might have taken away your flight, but to me, you rise above the clouds. They might have buried your name, they might have taken away your mask and your cape, but in my eyes, you will always be my hero.